Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining this webinar. We're going to get started now, and I think everything is working well. Thank you for joining. I hope you can all hear me okay. And today we are covering the topic of Claude Code in SEO. Now, I'm Ollie. I've worked with multiple SEO agencies, multiple startups, marketing teams to install systems like this into their SEO department. Now, Claude Code is something we've never really seen before in terms of SEO because it allows us to have a super smart model along with all of our tools we're normally using for SEO and put these two things together. So my aim of this next 20-30 minutes, because I want to keep this short, I want to keep this sweet because I don't want this to get boring, is we're going to dive into Claude Code. We're going to show you the basics that you need to know. You're going to walk away with a guide so you can set this up yourself. And then, of course, I also want the ability for you to be able to build this over time, because this is the incredible thing about Claude Code. We're not building one system which we're going to ditch in the future. This is something you keep building based on your custom workflows. Now, I think a lot of you have come through LinkedIn, so you've probably already seen a couple of the guides, but the reality is everyone's going to be in a different place. So some people might have never used Claude Code before. Some people will have used Claude Code. But again, we're going to spend 20-30 minutes. We're going to go through some bits a bit quicker. If you want to rewatch the video, if you want to check out the guide, you will have access to all the resources I show you in this video. Any questions as we go along, please pop them in the chat, but I'm not going to do like a Q&A where I sit awkwardly at the end and see if anyone's got any questions, but put them as we go along and I'll kind of touch on them in the end. Right, first things first, let me bring you over to my screen. So this is the main document we're going to be dealing with throughout this session. Of course, also I'm going to jump into Claude Code. As I said, what we're going to be building today is an AI system running on your machine. Everything you're going to have in this doc are going to be prompts that you can copy and paste in. We're going to have commands. So the aim today is to set up 5 commands covering the full SEO workflow. To give you a quick idea of what this looks like, this is my system which I'm using at the moment for Claude SEO. And this hosts a very, very wide range of features, from everything from this core workflow where we're looking at re-optimizing content, refreshing content. We can put all sorts of data from Google Search Console, like you can see here. It does keyword research, rank tracking, SERP, content analysis. It can look at backlinks, competitor intelligence, almost every kind of aspect of SEO we can build into the system. But I want to start with 5 core workflows, which is definitely going to save you a few hours a week for SEO. And like I said, the idea of this webinar is you keep building this over time. Now, getting set up is the first thing. As I said, some of you will have installed Claude Code before, some of you won't. I think from speaking to people, the main kind of drawback and pushback I'm seeing is that people don't want to use something quite technical. So obviously it's hosted in an integrated development environment, an IDE, and it looks quite technical. But setting this process up is something you have to do once. And once you're familiar with it, it does make quite a lot of sense. So in this guide, what I put for you here is exactly how you're going to set up Claude Code, and then how we connect our data sources. So the first thing is how we're going to set up Claude Code. Something you've got to be aware of is you've got to have a pro plan, which is going to cost you $20 a month, obviously through Claude, which is what we're using. And then there's a few terminal commands, again, depending on whether you're using Mac or whether you're using Linux, to basically install this into your computer. Again, this is a fairly simple process, and I just think this is something you can watch on YouTube. So if you haven't already done this, either follow the guide to do this or check it out on YouTube. Where it gets a little bit more tricky, and I promise once you're past this bit, this is the kind of main bulk of the workflow we're building, is about connecting your MCPs. If you've never heard of an MCP before, I'm talking about something called Model Context Protocol. Essentially, how I want you to imagine this is like we're giving Claude hands. So Claude is a very intelligent model. It knows a lot about how SEO should be executed. But what we want to be what we want to do to make this more advanced is give it access to our tools. So what I want to go through here is how you're going to set up Google Search Console and then data for SEO. Okay, starting with Search Console. This is probably your trickiest install, but I've given you just a chain of prompts which you can use to go ahead and add to your Claude terminal. this is going to bit by bit install Google Search Console. And I've just seen a question, so I'm going to say this. Okay, so does this work within Claude Code for desktop, or do you still have to install within the terminal? You've got two options. What I'm going to walk you through here is using, so you can use Claude Code for desktop. I'm going to use something called an IDE, which doesn't actually use the terminal. This is just basically we're installing something called Google Anti-Gravity. So you have a few different options for IDE. We can use Microsoft Visual Studio Code. We can use Google Anti-Gravity. Those are the main ones, or just the terminal on your computer. The one I'm going to recommend here is Google Anti-Gravity, just because the user interface is the nicest. And for something like this, it's going to look really straightforward. So you're going to see that in a sec. This looks very daunting, I know, but again, all we're doing is copying and pasting these, and it's going to walk you step by step. It's going to take you to your Google Search Console. You're going to allow analytics, and it's going to connect. And once it's connected, you don't have to touch it again. Something to remember with Google Search Console, there are multiple ways to set this up. Just either follow this tutorial, watch more videos, which I've created, which are on YouTube, of other creators on YouTube, whatever you want, but just work out how to connect it. Once it's connected, you never have to touch it again. But I would follow this guide. This for me is the best and easiest way, because it involves not touching Google Cloud or anything like that. So this is the simplest way to go ahead and install it. The next thing you're going to want to install is Data for SEO. If you've never heard of Data for SEO, this is about basically giving us access to tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs. Data for SEO is a huge database of SEO related things, including keyword volume. It has difficulty scores. It has access to keyword research data, what's ranking in SERPs, what's ranking in AI models. And you can use this once again. This is a much easier install. So all you're going to go here is sign up for Data for SEO, like so. You're going to have, I'm not going to jump into my account, but this is the website you're looking at here. And they're going to email you over an email, well, obviously going to be your email and a password. All you're going to do then is just, this is a super simple install. Go ahead, add your email, go ahead, add your password, and then it is going to connect. To verify all these have been connected, I just want you to go over to your terminal, and you can type in something like this. So this is your Claude MCP list. It's going to pull everything through. So this is saying that appreciate this is quite small. This is saying that my Data for SEO MCP server is connected, and your Google Search Console also connected. So, okay, those three stages are not as tricky as they seem. It just looks tricky because you probably haven't interacted with the terminal or an environment like this before, but there are loads of guides. There are also loads of ways to do this. So definitely trust the process, stick with it, because once you've done it, you have done it. And that is the most technical bit pushed out the way. Now we're actually going to jump into Claude, and I'm going to show you the prompts I use to build workflows like this. And then you can replicate these prompts for whatever SEO workflow you want to build. So I'm going to show you kind of some of my SEO workflows. But for example, if you've got something that you do every Monday for your SEO team, you can write a prompt to do this. So first things first, we are going to head into Anti-Gravity Studio. So I would recommend downloading Anti-Gravity, which is again where we're going to run Claude Code. To open up Claude Code, I'm going to go to the extensions, and I'm going to search for Claude Code. Then you're just going to want to install it here. I've already installed it, and we can see this little widget at the top is coming up here. So I'm going to go ahead and open this. And what we've done here is we've got full access to Claude Code, and it's a slightly easier interface rather than if anyone's seen anything like a terminal before, this is it. So again, this is not as tricky as it looks, because once we're here. It's almost like chatting with Claude. This is a much easier interface to enter into. What we're going to go do from here is add in our first prompt. Now, the first prompt is this. This you can just go ahead and add, but this is basically the structure you're going to want to add for this system. And you can have a proper read through this, but essentially this is the 5 commands I walked you through. It's adding this. Now, this is quite a long prompt, but actually the tasks it's doing are fairly simple. So this is just making sure we've got good infrastructure behind it. Claude's going to go ahead and probably ask us some questions when it comes to building this, But what I'm just going to walk you through again quickly is what we are creating here. So we're creating 6 different files. Our first one is our Claude.md. Again, if this is your first time ever interacting with Claude Code, you're going to be hearing this term a lot, Claude.md. Claude.md is our platform for creating basically the brain of Claude. So every single project, we want to go ahead and we want to create a Claude.md, and every prompt we make is going to apply to that. So everything whatever we're building, it's always going to refer back to that Claude.md, which is the main file. I have done something wrong here, and I knew I would, but I'm just going to show you what I did wrong. Is I should have opened a folder. So you're going to want to create a folder in your Mac. I'm going to use one which I created earlier called this, the SEO operating system, and then I'm going to go and run Claude. And I knew as soon as I'd be live, something would go wrong. But don't worry, we are going to jump back into this and add in our first prompt. So yeah, again, making sure we've got a folder installed and then making sure that we're basically building everything in a folder. At the moment, we're not going to push this to the cloud. Everything lives on our computer. And yeah, as I was saying, we're building a Claude.md file, which is the brain of everything that we're building. This is going to be applied to every single prompt. So when you're building massive software projects, you can imagine that referring back to this and having, if you've got specific things in terms of how you run SEO, rules you follow, I've already added in some for you, but yeah, you can add them into the Claude.md, and it's going ahead and writing all of these files for us. Again, what files are we creating? We are creating, so you can see the Claude.md, the rules I've added is basically to switch to each client because we may be running multiple clients. Rules like never invent keyword data, always use data for SEO for that. Keep responses focused and don't over explain. You can play around with that. You can add more as you want, but what we can see here is it's created 6 of our files. Now, stick with me here because this is where it gets a bit interesting. We've got files, and now I need to go ahead and add my data. So that first thing we added is basically our commands. So I want to be able to do /write this, and it's going to write it, /research this, and it's going to research it. But what we're going to do here is now go ahead and actually paste in some client info. How this has been set up at the moment is by basically Claude interviewing you to ask questions. What I'm going to do instead, just because we're on a bit of a time pressure, is I've already prepared some, actually I'm not going to remove that from there. Yeah, I've already prepared basically a full overview of my client. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this in anyway. But what it's going to do otherwise is just interview you everything it needs to know about setting up your first client. So I've already got my first client here. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy in this. And I'm going to remove these questions and paste that in there. Just check that it's all good. Perfect. Okay, so that is all the information basically added to our client and added to the system. This works really well for agencies because what I've set up here is a way by, if I want to add a new client, I can just keep adding clients and they're all going to be stored in their own system, which means when you've got the Google Search Console data or blogs you've written for one client, they're not going to overlap because we're all storing them in different files. That's how those first 2 prompts structure things out. We can see if I zoom in here, I appreciate this is small again, but what this is going to do is have a look at all of it. It's writing the competitors and storing them. It's opening up our Google Search Console and saving that. And once your MCPs are connected, this will be a really flawless process. Again, you can repeat this for multiple clients and keep adding them in from there. While that's running, I'm going to bring you back to this and just show you kind of the structure of this prompt. Again, how I've set this up at the moment is we've got a /weekly command, /Google Search Console audit, /prioritize, /brief, and /write. These are just the kind of basic things, obviously, we can do with SEO. I think one I really like is this /weekly. So this is going to go ahead. Every Monday you can run this. It's going to have a look at what's worked, what we need to be careful for, and what we need to work on this week. But my point is here is you can use these 2 prompts, literally just 2 prompts, to expand this infrastructure to the system like what I've built over here, which is doing almost every single part of SEO. Teams all want to do SEO differently, and that's what makes Claude Code incredible, is you can write the rules for how each thing should work. It can connect to your tools, and you can just run a / command to completely automate that process. Perfect. You can see here, my client has been added. I've got David Linton. These are all the information about him, and it's connected to his search console. Now let's go ahead and run this. So like it says here, I can use /Google Search Console Audit, /weekly, prioritize. We'll start with /Google Search Console Audit. And this is going to go ahead and firstly check, do we have any data from last time? And can we bring in any new data? Okay, so while that is running in the background, let's just go over what we've done exactly. We've set up the infrastructure, which again, you can reuse prompt 1 to add your own specific workflows. And we've also added our first client. Now we're going to go ahead and just play with these. We can run these, we can test them, and I'm going to show you what that looks like here. There's going to be a few yeses, because Claude's going to keep asking for approval, but then we can take a look at the results. I appreciate this is going to take a bit of time to basically pull all this data in from Google Search Console. So I want to give you a couple of tips about how we can keep expanding this system. GitHub is an excellent way if you want to save time on how long. So if you want to spend time on creating new commands, you can have a look at what's been created in GitHub. So for example, if I go to GitHub and I have a look at Claude Code SEO, we have access to other code bases which people have used to create agents like this. So I've just gone into one here. I can see the agents. I can see what they're writing. So this is their one for performance. This is their one for technical SEO. And I can just go ahead and give Claude Code this link and then tell it to replicate something like that for my site. So this is super personal. Like, don't automate tasks that you don't need automating, but what do you need doing in your marketing team? You know, the ones I've given you here can be useful across anyone, but do you need backlink overviews? Do you need reports generated for your clients? You can do that, and you can do that to your specific workflow. So now Claude's basically compiling this audit. I'm going to show you what it looks like, because the only downside of using something like Claude Code is that we don't have the ability to, it's not going to come out like a super beautifully formatted report, but that's not much of a problem because we can go ahead and copy and paste this actually into Claude, and it's going to format it all beautifully for us. But like, look how advanced this is. This is looking at every single bit of your Google Search Console over the last 30 days and giving us a full report. This is something that used to take teams a long, long time, and we can report it exactly in our style. So yeah, this is coming to an end here, and this is the full loop. So once you've set this up, this is the loop I would continue to run. Do /weekly every week, and then create briefs off of what the /weekly commands is, because it's gonna, you know, the super basic thing of SEO is we want to identify what's changed in the week, and I'm actually going to go ahead and run this now. What we need to work on and what has been good. So as you can see here, we've got our quick win keywords, we've got our CTR problems. This is a very high level overview of everything. And we can go ahead and we can use this to identify low-hanging keywords. I don't have to use my commands. I could go back to Claude and type to it in an interface and go, okay, so this is the Google Search Console data. What do you recommend I write a blog post on this week? This is where my competitors are building backlinks. What do I do here? So think of it as like your super high level chatbot or SEO executive when it comes to building SEO strategies. Now it's interesting. I'm just going to take my screen off for a second because I speak to a lot of SEO agencies, and this is kind of a controversial topic in some ways because people don't believe SEO can be fully automated. And of course, I don't believe it can be fully automated. But with tasks like this, where you're automating your own personal workflows, this is a time saver. This is a life changer for how SEO agencies operate and how marketing teams operate. And the reality is that 90% of people still are not on this wavelength. I just see a few questions here, so I'm going to answer them. Yes, the webinar will be sent out, and the documents as well, so you can have access to it all. Building these out as prompt, out as skills, or is there a difference in that compared to a prompt? So yeah, technically what we're creating here are skills. We're just creating our own custom versions of these skills. And the idea is that you can go download skills from GitHub. You can go install them, like I was showing you, into Claude Code. But will it be fully personalized to your workflow? No. So what I'm giving you here is the prompts to go create those skills so that you can execute that. Okay, looks like you may have missed me for a second there, but don't worry, it's all going to be sent off, and that's perfect. Okay, let's go check one more time on what this has been working on, and we'll have a look here. Cool. So we have got our weekly. Okay, so this is the /weekly command. This is my favorite. And what this is showing us is wins this week. For example, this page broke on to number 1 on the search results. This hit fewer impressions. We have this climb in impressions. It's also looking at how competitors are moved, what we need to do this week. And then I can just go ahead. I won't do it now. I can do /brief and /write. And the content this creates is going to be very, very good, because the setup I've done is looking at multiple agents. So you've got agents writing meta titles, meta descriptions, agents making sure it matches EEAT, making sure it has the right amount of keywords in and looks natural. And obviously we have competitor research and everything built into that. So please go and have a look at that. That's it from me. Of course, if you're interested in a system like this for your business and you just want it plugged in straight away, this is something I'm doing all the time for marketing teams and SEO agencies. So I will paste my Calendly kit link in the call now. And if you fancy chatting, it would be a pleasure. But I really, really appreciate you guys joining this short session and hope you kind of pulled some insights out from it. Any questions, please let me know on LinkedIn, let me know on email, and I think we will leave it there. Really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for watching. Okay, cheers. Bye-bye.